Today I will be reviewing a game that I played against EleaTyrell in the 4th round of the Raccoon Cup, which, as a newish player, is definitely the furthest I've gotten. And really, I only made it past round 2 because Attack Andy misclicked his Herald to move into attack range instead of controlling. Oops. Here, they started out by banning light cavalry, going first. I'm obviously going to ban Berserker, as I am not an absolute sicko like Noah T, who let me have Berserker the other day and then soundly beat my face in. So they take Warrior Priest. I go for Pikeman, obviously as a counter. And then I'm torn between Scout and Cavalry. I end up taking I end up taking Cavalry over Scout as an additional semi-counter against Warrior Priest. Not sure how correct that is. They take Scout and Crossbow. They've got already, I think, a much better lineup than I do. I end up with Pikeman, Cavalry, Archer, and Marshal, so I've got 2 bottom tier units, and they have 1 bottom tier unit. Early game is relatively unexciting. I put my cavalry on my right because I anticipate them putting the Warrior Priest where there are 2 spots to control. Tempted to throw off on this archer and use it to recruit instead, just because I really want to make sure that I have some place to put my pikemen. It's kind of a disaster if I end up drawing an awkward hand, but I think the way it's going to go, I would need to get 2 pikemen and an archer, 2 archer and a pikeman, something like that, for it to be a disaster. This left side of mine is going to be a problem. This crossbowman is going to be difficult for me to deal with because I don't really want to develop the marshal early, and the archer really does not line up well against it. So here I have a choice. I can place the archer on the left or on the right. Placing it on the right matches it up against the Warrior Priest, which is one of the few things that it's actually going to be good at. But I also want to be able to match up the pikeman against the Warrior Priest. So I'd like to leave this side open. The cavalry can switch hit, and I'm hoping to be able to pressure the crossbowmen with the cavalry in the center here. So I'm going to place my pikeman and start to move it up. Noticing immediately on the left side just how difficult it is going to be to develop over here. I'm not going to be able to move the marshal up without it becoming crossbow fodder. I don't want to bolster and move it because then I'm investing in a marshal already, and I can't really move this archer up without it being potentially threatened by the scout. I could move it to this leftish corner, and then I would have these 3 squares that I could threaten. So there's a reasonable argument for that, and perhaps I should have done. Here I end up just recruiting with the archer. End up going pikeman over cavalry. I'm not sure what the right development is there. I think it actually might be the cavalry over the pikeman, just because the cavalry is going to need to move up and threaten this crossbow. So here I bolstered off the marshal because I don't perceive that I have very good moves with it. I cannot move up without the crossbow taking it, I could move in front of the archer and threaten either of the spaces here. In retrospect, that might be better. I'm just a little hesitant to have a floating, marshal in my bag when I'd rather have a couple of far superior units here. But I can see that have been, the way the game played out, the correct move. Here, I can, what can I even do with this? I guess I'm recruiting again. So I end up with a bit of a larger bag than I perhaps would like. So this archer is going to sit here, doing not a whole lot. So my plan is to move the cavalry up to be able to move in a position to threaten the crossbow, and move the pikemen up here, control, and potentially move up and start to threaten the warrior priest. So here I have a couple options. So I'm definitely going to move up. I could bolster first, but I think I'd rather move up, control, then bolster, to have a place to redeploy a unit if need be. But perhaps because March is available, I should have bolstered. Alright, so we're enlisting for a crossbow and warrior priest, so we're really pretty heavily into those. So they are double bolstering the crossbow, which is going to make it really difficult for me to move up and effectively threaten with the cavalry. So I bolster here so that I do have a shot at that. They move up, and I'm going to take the bait, move in and attack. They clearly have another one in hand. I don't think they would have made that move without a second crossbow. Here, I had a couple options. I could have recruited a cavalry. I could have enlisted, taken a cavalry and a marshal. I could have marched the pikemen up one. My thinking here was that this control point was going to be incredibly difficult to take back if I let them get the crossbow onto it. And so that I needed to move that on now. Otherwise, we're basically already looking at the end of the game if they can manage to take this point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So my cavalry gets killed there. It's possible that in the prior round, instead of marching, I could have taken initiative. So that didn't happen. As it worked out, I wouldn't have drawn a cavalry anyway. It's maybe just a half-baked idea to have moved the cavalry in there to begin with. Maybe that was the core mistake, but I'm not sure. I move the pikemen up here to threaten the warrior priest. Honestly, I have not been in this situation all that often where I am countering a warrior priest with a pikeman. It gets banned so frequently, and I'm new enough that I don't have the play pattern there down. So what ends up happening is they fully trade out, and that ends up feeling pretty bad for me, and a little bit less bad for them, but maybe it's just a wash either way. I could see a world in which I triple bolster here and just plan on moving it up so I can keep a pike and move it onto a control point after. I can't move over towards the crossbow. I really don't want the crossbow eaten in future rounds, and I don't have a tight enough bag that I'm going to be able to move the pikemen all that frequently, so it's going to get picked off by the many more crossbows. They control, attack the pikemen, coin, sacrifice against the pikemen. I hadn't thought about that line of play, which is what ends up making it, I think, a fairly poor trade for me, is they get to trade coin and warrior priest. So roll a coin and a warrior priest for that last pikeman. So here, once again, I've got this archer. It's keeping the scout off, but it's not doing a whole lot else. I'm tempted to move it behind the marshal. Instead, I'm going to grab a marshal finally. Given where I'm at, I'd like to both control the location and threaten the crossbow. Archer looking a lot less good here. Do I move it there? Well, it kind of doesn't matter now because that scout is going to move on and control before I can really get it off the board. So I'll just grab another cavalry. Right now, I'm sitting on 2 cavalry, 2 pikemen. One of the things that hasn't happened all that frequently to me, but happens this game, is I really feel the extra unit on each of these stacks. I've got 3 4s and a 5, and they've got 3 5s and a 4. And it ends up being a resource game, I think, towards the end. They move away from my marshal. Replay the cavalry here. A little choked on control points. I don't want to play the pikemen here. I was like, what am I supposed to do? Now I'm going to move the archer over so that I can place the pikemen. But game's looking fairly lost to me here. So they bolster up the warrior priest. There's only 2 coins, so this is now just being protected. So I can't really effectively get here with the cavalry. So I've got 3 points, 4 when I take this, 5 if I somehow take this. I have no idea how I would possibly take a 6th here. It feels like my opening set of units, some combination of how I drafted and how I played the first few turns, have set me up to where this crossbow is going to dominate me, and I don't really have a shot at getting to these spaces. Here, at least I get to use the marshal to take out a crossbow. Here, Here, this is a tough choice. I'd really like to take out this crossbow, but I can't let them get on to this point. And it's possible that they do have the scout here. It's more than likely they have the scout. And I do see a world in which they have the scout, but they take the crossbow control point first because it's being threatened by the cavalry marshal, which would then not let them take this point. So that all lines up with being another scout in hand. We do end up having another scout in hand. It trades off for the pikeman. So now I've got this awkward spot where I've got two inactive units that I can deploy but never move. And my bag is just hot trash. The two units I have left are really martial and archer. A non-bow, if there ever was one. At this point, the game is definitely lost unless a meteor hits their house. I recruit a couple of units. I'm going to put the cavalry down as a blocker. But really here in a moment, I am going to just start passing. Because you can't concede tournament games, and this one, happy to be corrected, but I did not see any path to victory, given we are kind of equal, close to equal. I'm slightly behind, really, attrition-wise, and they have a couple of extra bodies overall, and my two bodies that are left are really poor together. So here, I am just going to start passing because you can't concede a tournament game, and I'll end the video here. But this was a tough match. I'm clearly outmatched here in play, but feel like the draft did not line up particularly well for me. In retrospect, I maybe take something instead of archer. I think the footman might have actually been a better call than the archer. I already had pikemen and cavalry against the warrior priest. Do I really need another unit that lines up well against it? Anyway, thanks for watching.